Anne's in Lewisham. Anne, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
It's been a long time since I was a young woman, but I'm a woman. And I've got a 23-year-old daughter.
Okay.
And what really alarmed me is that quite a few of her friends who are in relationships, to me, it looks quite controlling, and it does to my daughter.
Okay.
I'll give you a first example. When my daughter goes out clubbing, she says, if a guy approaches you and you're not interested, they keep coming back. They don't take no for a no, and then they get upset and they get angry, and there's a little bit of a verbal exchange.
Wow.
But she also said that what some guys do is, if you give them your number to kind of get them away, but you give a wrong digit at the end.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Do you ever doing that? Well, you probably don't, but anyway.
No one ever asked for my phone number. I'd have handed out flyers back in the day. Carry on.
Some of them do is they ring your number in front of you.
Wow.
So when you give them the number and you've done a wrong digit, they will ring it just to check you've given them the correct number. When she told me that, and this was quite a while ago she told me that, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I think that just shows the level of arrogance.
It does, doesn't it? It's more than arrogance. I don't know what it is, but you're right. Sometimes a story is so much more powerful than an actual explanation or a theory, isn't it? There's something there about denying that woman agency. You're not allowed to reject me.
Yeah. And then what they'll do is, she says, particular young men, is they will then say, well, I want your right number. And she says, and my daughter's a very strong character, very, very strong. She's not easily intimidated, etc. She'd be like, you're not getting it, or getting it.
Yeah.
But she says that a lot of girls, because they get frightened, will then give them the right number and then later on block the number.
Oh.
So, the guys have called me in front of them, yes, it's my number. And then she said, and then they will block it because they're frightened not to give the right number after they've called them in front of them and it's clear it's not the right number.
And that speaks to something that's happened to those young men that is different from you mentioned your age. I don't think it was like that when you were her age. I think if you told a fella that you weren't interested, he would take the hint. No. Usually, I'd say
99% of the time. But when I was her age many years ago, I did that once very politely. Don't want to dance, and I always used to say it's nothing personal, just don't want to dance.
Yeah.
And then he came back.
Yeah.
Don't want to dance, and then he got very you think you're something, you think you're better than me.
Yeah. But he stuck out. He sticks out in your memory, and he stuck out in that club, and he stuck.
I can remember that someone got quite aggressive about me saying no. But my daughter, it just seems to be every time they go out. She says these guys approach you, and you say no, and they come back, and
because they've been taught that. I mean, it began with negging. Do you remember negging, Anne? When they were they were pick-up artists, they were called, and they'd write books. And the way that you succeeded sexually was to wear women down and to insult them and make them feel bad about themselves, so that you became the one who could then temporarily restore their self-esteem by showing sexual interest in them. So I see that as part of the path you're describing. And then at the end of it, it's not even sophisticated, for want of a better word. These men have been taught that women do not have the right to reject them.
Yeah. And she's also got a few girlfriends who, I said about the control.
Yes.
There's one particular girlfriend, my daughter's girlfriend, she lives with her partner. And if they go out, he gives her a time to come home.
He gives her a time to come home?
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually midnight. And if she doesn't, because a few times she stayed at our house.
Yeah.
And if she isn't home by midnight, he bolts the door.
Wow.
And she is my daughter's age, and he is.
And that's coercive control, really.
And he can go out wherever he likes, as long as he likes, wherever he likes. And yet with her, he has real restrictions on what she does and where she goes and time she gets in. And James, this isn't just this one friend. She has a few friends where their boyfriends dictate and keep control over them.
I don't know how to phrase the next question because it is close to victim blaming, but you must have wondered why they put up with it.
Okay, in terms of my daughter, James, she wouldn't let anybody tell her what to do.
Yeah.
So even if she initially liked this guy, actually it has happened, she likes this guy, they start to date, and if he's out of line or does something she doesn't like or any inkling of control or real insecurity where they kind of all want an excuse to control you. She dumps them, and she has nothing more. Her friends that are, I feel, and she feels, have been quite controlled. They're very lack quite self-esteem.
Yeah, and they spot that. That's what groomers do, isn't it?
And I say that they look for their victims, James. You know, if they know that you lack self-esteem and confidence, and even if you're quite a gentle person.
Yes.
And I say it because my daughter will literally, she literally has got a tongue on her. When she needs it, she won't be like, pussyfooting around. She'll be like, do you know what? Go do one.
Yeah.
But
some people really don't like confrontation, do they?
Exactly. Her girlfriends that are, let's say, controlled, are very, don't want conflict, don't feel confident enough to stand up because they feel physically threatened. My daughter will she literally...
Yeah, sure.
She isn't thinking about anything.
And that's what I love about you, and the way that you've just explained that, is that you are not casting your daughter as being better than her friends, or you as having done something right, and therefore it doesn't happen to her. This is just, there will be a bit of nurture, a bit of influence going on here, but it's also serendipity and quite possibly nature,
But equally, James, some people can be in a situation where, it's at that time in their life, something's happened and they become we've all become vulnerable at some point in our life.
Absolutely right, and some people can smell it on us.
Exactly, and I actually think that's who they look for, is either someone who's in a very vulnerable state in their life, or somebody who is quite, like self-esteem generally, or doesn't like conflict. They seek it out, James, because they know then actually I then can control her or whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because I think there's nothing changed.
From Anne to Anna is in Newton Abbot. Anna, what would you like to say?
Hello, James.
Hello.
First-time caller, long-time listener.
Welcome.
Bit nervous.
Welcome. It's only me.
So I think there's sort of two sides to this. So the history of it and how we've got to where it's worse now, I think has come from this normalisation that we can discuss women's fundamental human rights.
Yes.
And that makes me really cross.
Yes.
Frankly.
Yes, well, you heard the Vice President of the United States of America telling lies about family planning clinics in this country while ignoring the threat posed to the West by Russia and China. So it's not confined to Andrew Tate and internet weirdos, is it?
Oh, no. And it's the Farages of this world, yet again, who come round to this whole idea that women are a set of people to be treated like children, to be controlled, to be, are we full humans or are we not? And because we've had that discussion, we've allowed and normalised that discussion for so long now, it's become true, that we are a subset of humanity.
And that younger men are more susceptible to believing that than older men, I suppose. And I mean...
It just is the only thing they hear.
Yes. Yes.
We never talk about whether or not men should have rights.
No, we don't. Well, I think these people do, probably. If you were to sit down and watch some Andrew Tate videos, you would be told that men don't have rights, that women have more rights. And apparently on Nick's show this morning, people were saying that men don't have heroes or role models anymore, which is... Well, I mean, we can chuckle, and I think we probably have to. And Farage has hooked up with a couple of US-based extreme anti-abortion groups, and we know that he has described himself as part of the similar phenomenon of Andrew Tate. But how does it land in your life? I presume you've got a daughter or something to make these comparisons.
I do. Yeah, and she'll be 16 next month.
Right.
And I think, although it is objectively worse than it was when I was that age, there is also a positive, I think, to this, in that because of the internet and because of social media and because of the ability to communicate, young girls are more aware of what's going on and they don't feel isolated with it.
Okay.
So she and her quite large group of friends, who are girls and boys, are very aware of who what they refer to as the Tatertots in their year are.
Oh, okay.
And they steer clear of them.
But that protects them, but it doesn't protect some of the girls that Anne was telling about, some of her daughter's friends.
Well, quite. But because of the ability to communicate on the internet, there is a chance you'll stumble across some of these young women.
Yeah. Okay.
And they will help, And yes, they're not as
that's where the
pervasive as the Andrew Tates of the world, but they are there.
I didn't know that. And that's where the pushback comes from. People essentially saying, you're better than this. You deserve more than this. You deserve a lot more than this. To women and to men, variations on the old instruction to give your head a wobble.
I'm not even sure it's telling women you deserve more than this. It's just saying, look at those boys over there. They're idiots because they believe this stuff.
Why do they believe it?
Well, because they've fallen down the Andrew Tate rabbit hole online.
They're being told, in a sense, what they want to hear. It's like all processes of grooming and cultish grooming, as they're being given you're the real victim here. And
I think it is hard for young. I've got a 17-year-old son as well.
Definitely, absolutely, definitely. It's a really tough time for every youngster. But again, I suppose divide and rule is what they're doing. They're saying, the girls have got it easy. You lads are the real victims here. Whereas, in fact, A, that's not true, and B, girls and boys have a really, really, really tough time of it at the minute for a whole heap of reasons.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
You and Anne have both avoided that potential pratfall of sounding as if you're claiming you have done something right and therefore this has not come into your life. And I wouldn't be too critical or judgmental of anyone who did that today because the territory is so fraught. But goodness me, the way in which this has happened is absolutely shocking, and because of that fear of giving attention to people who are desperate for attention. I don't think there is an objective answer to that question, by the way. There's so many of them out there. So desperate for, please notice me, please. Like it's almost like a professional troll. Except there comes a point when society has been damaged so badly by their influence and their actions that to ignore them for fear of giving oxygen to the flames of their hatred and their bigotries is to actually help them. By ignoring them, you help them. What is it they say about things flourishing in the darkness? You have to shine the light. And thank goodness Sheila Fogarty has been shining the light on this issue. Debbie, what would you like to say?
Hi,
Hello,
morning.
Debbie. Hello.
I'm calling in, I think, because this is something that I feel quite strongly about.
Yes.
I'm a mum of two young kids, two young girls. I've had family and friends women murdered by men in their lives.
Okay.
I've myself been, sexually assaulted in public. So coming up, I think, as a woman, younger and now older, I've had a gamut of experience to have the negativity and the toxicity that can occur. But I think it's never, in some respects, been as bad as it is now, in part because of social media.
Sure. And
part of what I'd rung in to talk about, I suppose, was also the impact that it's had in part on my husband, who is an older gentleman. He's not a young guy.
Okay.
I would say for the most part, otherwise he's pretty sensible.
Yeah.
He is not otherwise necessarily inclined to read into things, but
Sure.
I think the algorithms have brought up a certain set of content online. He ended up following somebody online that I didn't particularly like him following, but,
Okay.
I'm never going to tell him what he can and can't do.
Sure.
There was occasionally comments that he started to come out with that I just felt really uncomfortable with. And I just thought, how is it that you, somebody that I know otherwise is really respectful, otherwise really caring of all the women in your life, even you, it seems to have really seeped in to your consciousness.
Can I ask what sort of comment? You don't have to tell me. I know this won't be incredibly easy for you, this conversation, but what kind of things set your alarm bell ringing?
So without naming the particular content creator...
You can if you want.
It was a gentleman, I think, called Kevin Samuels in America, and he used to effectively have quite a lot of women on, and almost sort of, rate them, effectively berate them, for the most part, end up berating them and telling them how rubbish they are, and why they're a 4 out of 10 and why most men won't want them.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And there was almost a sort of humorous side to it. So they bring on people that perhaps didn't have the most insight, but then almost use it as a lever to sort of bash women generally.
Okay.
And there would be comments, I think, from my partner where I just sort of think, you're reading into this, you're buying into that, women as a whole are all like some of these women, or women that, might not be as desirable, whatever it might be, to certain people.
Yes.
And then that attributes, and I just think if that can reach him...
I'm reading about him now. He sneered at modern women who flaunted their multiple college degrees and boasted of their independence. He criticised black women for being old and out of shape and for having children out of wedlock. But he did it, one journalist writes, in a tailored suit and bathed in mood lighting with a funky kinetic energy sculpture on his desk. And then you're right, women queued up to zoom into his show and got critiqued by him.
Yeah. So it was always a really uncomfortable watch, generally.
For you.
Yeah. And if you were to ask me, do you think it stopped, or why has it stopped? In part, with no disrespect to him, it's in part because Kevin Samuels passed away. So your
husband hasn't found another fix, as it were?
No, I think that there's definitely been imitators that have sought to take his place, and you can pretty quickly see through them. There was a charisma. I will give him that. There was a charisma that he had that I think a lot of other people don't have, and I think that's what people like Tate and what people, to an extent, like Trump, will have, and it draws you in. And so the little bit of truth that they give you, you're prepared to take that and ignore the rest of what they're saying in order to make yourself potentially feel better about where in your life you feel that women have done you wrong, or where you've fallen short. And so it can't be you, it's got to be them.
Brilliantly put, Debbie. Thank you. Are you all right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think.
Good. No, you did. That was really helpful. It was. You really are, and it really helped me to come to a better understanding of how bad these things can happen to previously decent and still decent people, but harbouring indecent ideas, indecent thoughts that have been put there. And that's the point, really, isn't it? A quick text, no names. I'm a mother to a 21-year-old son who I love dearly, but his life has gone off track, particularly his mindset towards women. I blame social media, a diet of Andrew Tate and others. I'll never stop feeling culpable for letting this happen under my nose. He's always been told how much he is loved. He's been very well educated. He has role models. His father and other members of the family are true gentlemen in every sense, and yet my son is a woman-hating person who I increasingly can't stomach to be around. The way he talks and thinks is appalling and hurtful. Thank you for examining this. Well, I couldn't examine any of it without the callers that I've had, and it is a subject to which we will return, possibly in part on Monday, when we're dedicating much of our programming to online safety, and that does seem to be a very big part of this problem, doesn't it?